Have you ever wondered what would happen if the Earth suddenly stopped spinning for just 5 short seconds right now? It sounds like a minor glitch in time, but the reality is a catastrophic event that would end all human life. Imagine you are standing still, but the ground beneath you is moving at over 1,000 miles per hour every day. If that rotation stops instantly, everything not bolted to the bedrock will continue moving forward at that same incredible speed. You would be launched sideways at supersonic speeds, crashing through walls and obstacles before you even realize what is happening. It is not just people, but entire buildings, trees, and vehicles that would be ripped from the ground and destroyed. The atmosphere itself does not stop moving just because the solid ground has come to a complete and sudden halt. This creates massive winds, reaching speeds of over 1,000 miles per hour, which is stronger than any nuclear explosion blast. These winds would literally peel the surface of the Earth clean off, leaving nothing but bare rock and total devastation. Even if you were inside a bunker, the sheer force of the shifting air pressure would likely crush your internal organs. The oceans are the next major problem because water carries an immense amount of momentum that cannot be stopped easily. Massive walls of water, miles high, would surge across the continents, drowning everything in their path within a few seconds. Coastal cities like New York, Tokyo, and London would be erased from the map as if they never existed at all. The kinetic energy released during this sudden stop is equivalent to thousands of atomic bombs detonating across the entire planet. This is not just a simple pause, it is a cosmic car crash on a scale that humans cannot truly comprehend. Everything we know about the stability of our world depends on the constant and steady rotation of the planet beneath us. Without that rotation, the centrifugal force that keeps the oceans bulging at the equator would suddenly disappear, causing massive shifts. The water would rush toward the poles, creating 2 giant oceans and leaving a massive band of dry land in the middle. But you would not be alive to see this new geography because the initial impact would have already finished everyone. Think about a passenger in a car that hits a brick wall at high speed without wearing a safety seatbelt. Now imagine that car is the size of the entire world and the wall is the invisible hand of physics. The sheer scale of the destruction is so extreme that the word disaster does not even begin to describe it. Even the mountains would not be safe, as the tectonic plates would grind against each other with unimaginable and deadly force. Earthquakes of magnitude 10 or higher would ripple through the crust, turning solid ground into a liquid ocean of debris. Volcanoes that have been dormant for thousands of years would suddenly erupt as the internal pressure of the Earth shifts. The sky would turn black with dust and smoke, blocking out the sun and plunging the world into total darkness. It is a scenario where the laws of motion turn against us and turn our peaceful home into a giant blender. 5 seconds might seem like the blink of an eye, but in space, it is enough time to reset the entire world. If the Earth started spinning again after those 5 seconds, the damage would already be permanent and completely irreversible. The transition back to rotation would cause a second wave of destruction as everything is thrown in the opposite direction. This double shock will ensure that no structure on the surface remains standing and no living creature survives the event. To understand why this happens, we have to look at the concept of inertia, which is a fundamental law of physics. Inertia states that an object in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon by an external and powerful force. Since the Earth is moving so fast, any sudden stop creates a massive conflict between the ground and everything on it. It is like pulling a rug out from under a table full of fine china, but the rug is the world.
The magnetic field that protects us from deadly solar radiation would vanish because the liquid iron core would be disrupted. Without this invisible shield, the sun would blast the surface with high-energy particles that destroy all electronic communication systems. Satellites would lose their orientation and fall from the sky like burning stars, crashing into the chaotic world below them. This is not just a physical impact, but a total collapse of the technological infrastructure that keeps modern society functioning. Imagine a supersonic jet hitting a wall of solid lead and then multiply that force by every object on Earth. The Earth is actually an oblate spheroid, which means it is fatter at the middle because of its constant rotation. If it stops, the planet would try to snap back into a perfect sphere, causing massive global crustal displacement events. This change in shape would trigger the largest volcanic eruptions in the history of the world, all at the same time. The friction generated by the atmosphere rubbing against the stationary ground would create temperatures hot enough to melt solid steel. Forests would spontaneously ignite into massive firestorms that spread faster than the speed of sound across the entire ruined landscape. The sound of the wind would be a deafening roar that would burst eardrums and shatter glass across every continent. Every human being not in a specialized lead-lined bunker would be shredded by the debris flying through the thick air. Think about the most violent hurricane you can imagine, and then realize this wind is 20 times more powerful than that. The sheer weight of the moving air would flatten entire mountain ranges and turn them into piles of loose gravel. Even the deepest parts of the ocean would feel the shock as the water slams into the underwater mountain ridges. This would create underwater shock waves that would kill all marine life and boil the water near the tectonic plate boundaries. The Earth is a delicate system held together by the balance of motion and gravity, which is now completely broken. It is like a spinning top that is suddenly grabbed by a giant hand and forced to stay perfectly still. The energy that was once used for rotation has to go somewhere, and it turns into pure heat and destruction. If you were at the North Pole, you might feel a slight wobble before the supersonic winds arrive to finish you. But at the equator, the speed of the stop would be so violent that your body would literally vaporize on impact. There is no place to hide and no way to prepare for an event that moves faster than your own nervous system. The atmosphere would eventually settle, but it would be filled with the toxic dust of 1 billion destroyed homes and lives. Oxygen levels would plummet as the chemical composition of the air is altered by the extreme heat and the fires. The Earth would look like a scarred and dead moon floating in the cold void of space without its protective layer. This 5-second pause is the ultimate reset button that wipes the slate of biological history clean in one strike. It is a terrifying reminder that our entire civilization is built on a rock spinning through a very dangerous cosmic neighborhood. We take the rotation of the Earth for granted every day without realizing it is the only thing keeping us alive. The kinetic energy of the planet is so massive that stopping it is like trying to stop a charging freight train. Except this train is 12,000 kilometers wide and moving at 1,600 kilometers per hour at the center point. The resulting explosion of energy would be visible from the other side of the solar system as a bright flash. Alien civilizations watching from afar would see our blue marble turn into a glowing red coal in a few seconds. This is not a science fiction movie plot, but a literal calculation of the physics of motion and planetary dynamics. The sheer scale of the horror is something that no human mind can truly visualize without feeling a sense of dread. We are all passengers on a giant spaceship that has no brakes and no steering wheel to save us from disaster.
If the rotation never resumed, the half of the world facing the sun would eventually burn into a scorched desert. The other half would be locked in a permanent frozen night, with temperatures dropping to levels that freeze liquid air. But since we only stopped for 5 seconds, the restart would be just as violent as the initial sudden stop. The sudden jolt of starting again would create a second massive earthquake that levels any remaining jagged rock formations. It is like being in a blender that stops for a moment and then starts spinning at full speed again. The friction between the mantle and the crust would generate enough internal heat to trigger a global volcanic winter. Ash would fill the upper atmosphere for decades, blocking out the sun and killing what little plant life might remain. Even the moon would be affected, as the gravitational dance between our two worlds is momentarily and violently disrupted. The tides would lose their rhythm, and the moon might slowly begin to drift away from its stable orbital path. This is a chain reaction of cosmic proportions, where one tiny change leads to the total collapse of everything. Comparing this to a car crash is like comparing a small firecracker to the explosion of a massive supernova. The amount of energy we are talking about is more than the total energy humans have used since the beginning. It is the equivalent of every nuclear weapon on Earth being detonated at the exact same moment in time. Our survival depends on a delicate balance of physics that we rarely think about while we drink our morning coffee. We live on a razor edge of safety where a 5-second pause means the end of our entire species. Imagine the silence that would follow as the roar of the supersonic winds finally dies down over a dead world. No birds singing, no cars driving, and no voices left to tell the story of what happened to our planet. The Earth would continue its lonely journey around the sun, but it would be a ghost ship sailing through space. This scenario proves that we are not the masters of the universe, but merely guests on a very fast rock. Every breath you take is a gift from the constant and rhythmic rotation of the world beneath your feet today. If you find this terrifying, remember that the Earth has been spinning for billions of years without ever stopping once. The stability of our solar system is one of the greatest miracles in the history of the entire known universe. We are protected by the laws of physics that keep our world moving at the perfect speed for human life. So next time you look at the ground, remember it is moving faster than a bullet to keep you safe. The 5-second pause is a nightmare that reminds us how precious and fragile our daily lives truly are now. It is a reminder to appreciate the simple fact that the sun rises and sets every single day for us. Share this with someone who takes the world for granted and let them know how lucky we are to survive. The universe is a vast and dangerous place, but for now, the Earth keeps spinning and we are still here. Stay curious about the world around you and never stop wondering what would happen if the rules suddenly changed. Because in the grand scheme of time, 5 seconds is all it takes to change the fate of the world.